Will you join me in our call to worship? We are a justice-making, truth-seeking people. We share a reverence for the mystery of life. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning, Birmingham Unitarian Church. I don't know. Ed Sharples told me I had to enjoy myself up here. That wasn't a good enough good morning. Let's try it again. Good morning, Birmingham Unitarian Church. All right. It is good to be together again. Whether you are joining us here in the sanctuary remotely via Zoom, or watching this recording later, it is good to connect with you. As a multi-platform church, it is important for us to build a bridge between online and in-person participants. We're calling this connection opportunity Greeting Our Virtual Neighbors. First, we'll project the image of folks who are currently on Zoom up here on our screen and ask them to turn their cameras on and give us a wave. Not enough cameras on. Getting a few more. All right. Okay, now here we are gathered in person. We'll turn and face the camera, which is the black one back there, and give them a wave. Whenever and however we connect with BUC, we are building BUC. At home, on campus, in the world, every day. We are Birmingham Unitarian Church, and we are building the beloved community. We join with other Unitarian Universalists around the world as we light our chalice. This morning's chalice lighting is written by Katie Gelfand and is titled, "The Abundance of Our Lives Together." We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In this sanctuary, we harvest bushels of strength for one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity. In the authentic and gentle manner of our connections, we cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other, for it is the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us.
At this point, you've probably heard a little bit about our vision of ministry from the board and from myself, and visitors, get ready because it's exciting. This is a planning tool that we will use through the end of next year. The condensed version of our vision of ministry is do more stuff together, be more multicultural, the 8th principle, use less non-renewable, 7th principle. November's worship theme is harvest, and that's based on the first of these visions. Foster a stronger culture of engagement, stewardship, and fellowship, otherwise known as do more stuff together. Last week, we heard and saw some of the good harvest of this beloved community, people finding a sense of connection, babies growing up in our liberal religious tradition. BUC is a place of belonging and joy. We like this harvest, and we want more of it Today's service is focused on the labor that leads to such a harvest. In church, we call the labor of sowing and tending stewardship. Today's service will consider the many ways that we support each other in the life of this congregation. We'll begin with a time for all ages. Today is Shannon's Sunday off, so we have a pre-recorded message which takes place in the field, so it works out really well for us. But at the end of this recording, all of our K through 5 students will go to their classes. There'll be an adult waiting for you back there to go like you normally would.
The dictionary defines soil as the upper layer of earth in which plants grow, or a black or dark brown material, typically consisting of a mixture of organic remains, clay, and rock particles. But I like to think of soil as a community. There are 3 main mineral components of soil: sand, silt, and clay. There's also a little bit of organic matter made from decayed plant and animal material. When organic matter is really broken down so it can't decompose anymore, it's called humus, which shares a root with the word human. In addition to minerals and organic matter, also in the soil are billions of microorganisms. Microorganisms are tiny, tiny little life forms like bacteria and fungi. These microbes, together with the roots of plants, make up the community of the soil. Just like how humans need certain nutrients from our food to be healthy, so too do plants. Plants are able to make their own food in the form of sugar, using water, air, and sunlight. But just like how we can't live healthily off of carbs alone, there are some nutrients that plants need that they can't get through photosynthesis. They also need nitrogen for healthy leaves, phosphorus for strong roots, and potassium for hardy growth. Luckily, they've developed a system of exchange with the soil microbes. The microbes are able to break down minerals and rocks or capture nutrients from the air. In this and many other ways, the nutrients are now in forms that the plants can then take up. In exchange, the plants feed the microbes some of their sugars. All of this is happening under the soil's surface, and this is what happens in healthy soils. However, this system of cooperation breaks down when the plants stop needing the microbes. So, why would the plants stop needing the microbes? Well, when we heavily apply chemical fertilizers, the plants get addicted to the quick fix. They are freed from the slow process of relationship building, of having to share. If the plants are annuals, they'll be gone the next year, and the community system will have broken down. The next year's crop will need the chemical fertilizer in order to do well, because the relationship between the plants and the soil microbes has suffered, and it could take years to restore. But degradation is preventable and restoration is possible. It just takes a lot of care and learning to see crops not simply as products we take out of the land, but part of a valuable community. And it all starts with soil. Learning to see soil as more than just dirt. You might even think of it as sacred.
The work of our congregation requires acts of service, small and large. In the past several years, I have called on people to provide jugs of iced coffee and lemonade, pick up some very specific pillar candles, research little opaque plastic containers with lids, store random things from the lower level in their basement, and take on a variety of leadership roles. Each of those tasks was important and supported the health and success of our congregation and deserves recognition. I want to say thank you to everyone who's taken on a random little one-off job and has accepted the call to fulfill that request on behalf of our beloved community. Our church can only function through acts of service like these and through regular, ongoing participation of lay leaders serving in a variety of roles. Our lay leaders work in partnership with the staff to provide the structure and a lot of labor that is required to live out our mission, our visions of ministry, and our covenants. That includes the Board of Trustees, the nominating committee, and those who have formally chartered committees: personnel, budget and finance, revenue, buildings and grounds, pastoral care associates, worship associates, social and environmental justice council, religious education council, music committee, membership committee, stewardship team, and more, who don't have those formal charters, but who are equally important to the smooth operations of our church. There are also lay leaders who serve in important planning roles for our fellowships, including the Humanists of BUC, Living by Heart, the discussion group, sharing dinners, small groups, and again, so many more. Will the lay leaders who serve on any committee have a leadership role in any fellowship group, who are on the board, the nominating committee, any leadership role, please rise or raise your hand for recognition. And we know that there are more on Zoom or who are otherwise unable to be here today. The ultimate source of authority in Unitarian Universalism is the individual congregation. It is you, the people who make BUC and who have decision-making power. We have come this morning to commission these lay leaders to affirm their authority to carry out their roles and to recognize the labor that they provide on behalf of the church. And so I ask you, the members and friends of Birmingham Unitarian Church, do you commission these among you with the solemn and joyful duty of leadership of our congregation? If so, please say we do. And lay leaders, I add to this my heartfelt gratitude and my blessing. Thank you so much for everything you do to make our church possible.
The mission of Birmingham Unitarian Church is to be a free and welcoming religious community that encourages lives of integrity, learning, service, and joy. One way we live out this mission is by giving half of our weekly offering to a nonprofit organization that shares our values and addresses needs in one of these areas: environmental action, economic justice, civic engagement, and racial justice. We support a new organization each month. This month's plate collection recipient is the Michigan Urban Farming Initiative, whose mission is to empower urban communities by using agriculture as a platform to promote education, sustainability, and community, while simultaneously reducing socioeconomic disparity. Let there be an offering in support of our beloved community and organizations that build the world we dream about. This morning's offering will now be received with gratitude. Ushers, please come forward. We are a church of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. With gratitude, we dedicate this offering to the good works of our congregation and dedicate ourselves to its service.
We've come to the time in our service that we set aside for centering and prayer. We begin with a sharing of joys and sorrows from our congregation. First, we have a joy from Jane O'Neill and Dan Kasuth, with deep appreciation for the great group of BUCers who came out yesterday to work on the outdoor campus. Cindy Clement, Mary Dunn, Karen Steinke, Kimberly Campbell, Shannon Sneidman, Terry Gates, Kathy Duhame, Mary Jo Ebert, Carol Lee, and Emmett Van Houten. You have greatly improved the exterior of our church and made it look like the beloved place that it is. Thank you. And thank you, Jane and Dan, for heading that up. We also have a joy this morning from Jan Devereaux. Jan shares that she is grateful for the opportunity to attend the awesome new Detroit Public Theater performance, Mud Row. Excited that Detroit's growing cultural district is being nationally recognized for excellence. I invite you now to move with me further into a spirit of prayer and centering. Spirit of love and life, mystery that is known by many names and no name at all. We come into this harvest season hungry. We come in needing so much. We need love and acceptance. We need places where we are known, places where we are held in our fullness of who we are. May we find that here. May we find that place of grace and love and plenty and bounty here at Birmingham Unitarian Church. May we be that for each other. And let that nourish us so that we can take it out into the rest of this world. The whole world needs the same things that we need. We found some of it here. So let us work to expand that, to grow it, and to be able to take it out to others who need it too. May we be shelter and love to one another today and always. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
Our first reading today is a poem by Chris Gibero titled Sow and Reap. Season of reaping tenaciously follows season of sowing, as day follows night, and as a shepherd follows his flock. For certainly does one reap in multiples in due time and season what one sows. Wheat yields wheat for the sower to reap, not rice, not millet, not maize, and not guinea corn. A sower of tares reaps tares likewise. Sow a life in service to others, and you will reap a life of abundance. Provide for those who lack, and you shall not lack anything good that life holds. Forgive your offenders, and forgiveness shall be yours whenever you err. Sow honesty, and you will reap unflinching trust. Sow hard work and obedience to God, and you will reap eternal prosperity. Sow faith, and you will reap miracles. Sow love and care, and you will reap harmony and peace. Sow laughter, and you will reap joy and mirth. Sow integrity, and you will reap honor and dignity. But plant lies, and you will harvest distrust. Plant selfishness, and you will harvest loneliness. Plant pride, and you will harvest strife and a clumsy fall. Plant envy, and you will harvest retardation and confusion. Plant bitterness, and you will harvest isolation and dejection. Plant gossip, and you will harvest enemies and troubles. Plant stress and worry, and you will harvest ill health and wrinkles. Plant idleness and vainglory, and you will harvest dearth and poverty. For that which a soul sows, that shall he also reap.
Don't worry, this one's prose. Our second reading is an excerpt from The Amazing Grace of Each Other by Jenny Wheel. At the time of writing this, Jenny, who is a lay leader at our congregation in Dallas, was going through a lot of life transitions. She was pregnant, she was mid-divorce, she had been mugged in downtown Dallas after having to move in with her parents during this divorce. So she started going to a UU church at her friend's gentle insistence, and the rest is history. One thing about church is they'll take you in when you feel unfit for human company, even if you intend to sit suspicious and cross-armed in the back. I returned to my friend's church, slipping in and out of services with little in my mind but my own need for encouragement. But church life pulls against such isolation, reminding us of how the world moves. Babies are born and dedicated, couples marry and split, people get sick and they get better, or they don't. We are continually reminded that suffering and good fortune come to us all, the best and worst of us. The best and worst of us is needed too for so much celebrating and commiserating, serving and praying, organizing and demonstrating, teaching and learning. In its quiet way, church began to relieve my burden of specialness and the suffering that I felt and the suffering that I caused. At the same time, I came to feel that my particular gifts were not just needed, but discovered and recognized at church. Engaging in community where we share vulnerability as well as joy called me back to perspective and participation in the larger world. Incredibly, my friend had been right. I had been received with dignity and put to use.
This morning's choral anthem is by Swedish jazz composer Nils Lindberg. It's a meditation on various vocalized vowels. I invite you to close your eyes and listen and let your mind wander as you hear this meditation.
My grandfather was a stalwart gardener. I don't talk about my family a lot, but today is what we're doing. I don't know that my grandfather loved gardening, and I don't know that he enjoyed being outside a lot, but I do know that he loved his family, and his circumstances left him with gardening as the most reliable method to feed that family. He grew up in a very different world than I did, and that I'd wager most of us did. He didn't finish high school because he, quote, wasn't any good at it. In fact, I'm not sure he started high school, I think 7th grade, maybe as far as he went. He married my grandmother when they were both still teenagers, and then she left school as well. He served in the Second World War, where he gained some carpentry skills. He went on to become the assistant fire chief at an army depot. He and my grandmother had 4 children, 3 of those while they were still in their 20s. He was a hardworking man who had very limited opportunities that he managed to make the most out of. He was no stranger to hunger. He grew up in a very large family that were sharecroppers. They sharecropped cotton. He came from hardworking, decent people, and he didn't blame anyone for that uncertainty that he and his siblings faced. But we knew that they had faced it because he was determined that his children would not worry about where their next meal came from. And so he began gardening a modest plot behind his house, and the commitment paid off. Keeping that garden going, keeping the family fed didn't cost my grandfather much at all, only most of his waking time, every last bit of energy he had in a river of blood, sweat, and tears. But you can get groceries with money or labor, and he had one of those. The family went through plenty of lean times, but they always had that garden to rely on. After my grandmother's funeral last year, my uncle told me a story that I had never heard. When he and my aunt started dating while they were in high school, my uncle had come over to dinner to be with the family. And he said they started off with corn, and he ate some because everybody was eating the corn, but he was trying to take it easy and waiting for the meat to come. But the meat didn't come, just more corn, because that's what they had. Corn from the garden, that was it. That was dinner that night. I assumed there was butter, but that was it. Now, my uncle may have told that story to other people. He may have told it at other times, but that one is not in the rotation of ongoing family stories that you hear every time you're together. It's not a story that one would tell often or in front of a lot of people. You guys, your family now. You wouldn't want to tell that one a lot, though, because you wouldn't want to run the risk of embarrassing somebody because they couldn't afford to serve meat, right? But the thing is that's not what that story was about, not for my uncle. He had the utmost respect for my grandfather, and to be clear, everyone had the utmost respect for my grandfather. This is not a story about how the family could not afford meat. It was a story about a man who worked long hours at a dangerous, demanding job, and he still had the energy and the determination to maintain a garden plot that produced enough corn to feed the entire family and a linebacker. It's a story about making something from nothing, keeping everybody going another day using nothing but the power of love and determination. Coaxing that much produce from a backyard plot requires careful management of the land. I remember that garden as this lush oasis of delights, spiny cucumbers that you had to twist off the vine, proper tomatoes that I still dream about, yellow crookneck squash, peppers you really ought to ask about before you pop in your mouth, watermelons, pumpkins, carrots, a fence that ran the length of the garden that was just bursting with blackberries, and of course, a decent amount of corn. I wish that I had learned more from my grandfather about a lot of stuff, but gardening especially. I mean, I would go out there to help him, but I spent most of my time at that blackberry fence. I mean, I was just a kid, so I couldn't have known that there would be so much I wish that I knew that I could only learn from him, right? The knowledge gained over decades of tending that same piece of earth is just almost unimaginable to me. I've moved around so much. I can't imagine what you can learn from that. For one thing, I knew that things moved around out there. I'd go out to where the cucumbers were supposed to be and find bell peppers, or there'd be a year without melons or something. When I was young, I assumed that was a choice that he had made because he just didn't want that thing that year, or maybe it just hadn't turned out right. But I realize now that was most likely a combination of crop rotation and following the farmer's almanac. That garden grew continuously from the mid-1940s when my grandparents bought that house to the late 1990s when my grandfather became too frail to manage it. To my knowledge, there wasn't ever a season in which something didn't grow in that garden. Texas has 3 growing seasons, so over 50 years, we'll say it was around 150 times of planting, tending, and harvesting something. And I realize that that's a stretch and a wild guess, but the point is it was a lot. Planting, tending, harvesting. The careful stewardship of that plot of land, similar to the stewardship of a church, and I hope you'll mind this slightly clumsy transition, but when we talk about stewardship of our church, though, we tend to take this narrow focus on the subject and talk only about money. And then we do ourselves the further disservice of limiting those meager conversations to the month of March. It's time for us to break that habit. Stewardship, in church speak, is the care and upkeep of the church, which does include money. But it is so much more than that. There are 3 elements of church stewardship: time, talent, and treasure. Treasure, the money part of stewardship, is important. That is true. There are a lot of things that we have to pay for, like a mortgage, utilities, sidewalks, salt, Wi-Fi, Zoom accounts. We meet those financial obligations through the treasure part of stewardship. That's true. But meeting those financial obligations is not the purpose of our church. Our building and our financial obligations are the means to the ends. They are not the ends, right? This is why we link the weekly offering with our mission statement. It does not start off with the mission of Birmingham Unitarian Church is to meet our monthly financial obligations. Also, please note that that part of the worship service is called the invitation to gratitude, because that's what we're doing. Through giving, we're expressing our gratitude for our church, for each other, and for what we're about in this world. The purpose of any Unitarian Universalist congregation is to put more Unitarian Universalism into the world. BUC exists to be a laboratory where we practice living our covenants and become emboldened to take that way of living out into the world. Our covenants are our 8 principles and our specific congregational covenant, the one about assuming best intentions, being mindful of our shared humanity, being part of the solution when things go awry. We have those covenants because we believe that they will give us the support and the environment that we need to fully be who we are, to flourish as human beings, to live lives of meaning and purpose. They're not empty words, they're structures. And we have further defined a mission statement for our congregation to be a free and welcoming religious community that encourages lives of integrity, learning, service, and joy. And now we have these 3 visions of ministry, what we believe the ministry of our church will be through the end of next year. Stewardship, right there at the top, doing stuff together. Multiculturalism, using less non-renewables. And when we talk about stewardship, This is what we're talking about. Yeah, sidewalk chalk. No, that too, that's fun. But sidewalk salt and Wi-Fi, right? Yes, we need those things because we need to be able to get into the building or into the Zoom meeting to do the deeper work outlined in the covenants, the mission statement, the visions of ministry. That's what stewardship is for. These words, these structures, these ways of being. In order for us to live into the mission, the covenant, the vision of ministry, we need all three aspects of stewardship, time, talent, and treasure from everyone. Treasure, again, is super important, but that's not our focus today. Just put that to the side. Time, showing up, coming to services, being a part of the life of the church, eating those birthday cupcakes, building relationships with each other and with the institution. That is a part of stewardship. That's the time part of the triangle. The talent, that's the next level. I have often said that when it comes time for you to retire, come talk to me. If you're looking for something to do, I'm your person. We need people to serve on committees, teach religious education, sing in the choir, pull weeds, greet, usher, bring donuts. Seriously, by the way, people, we do need to sign up for donuts or we're not going to have any next week. You saw how many people stood earlier for recognition today and commissioning of the lay leaders. I am so grateful for each and every one of them, and we need more, not because it's never enough, but because church takes all of us doing what we can. Our labor and our participation brings us closer together as a community, and it shapes us. It shapes our community. There is a mystical alignment between the direction of a church and the people who are providing the power to move in that direction. The direction is defined by the ones who are providing the labor. And the way that we get there is defined by the ones who are providing the labor. And there's always room for more labor, more voices in the process, which is part of why it takes forever to do anything. But even the shared frustration over slow process can be a source of love and bonding. Money is necessary for our church to function, but it is not sufficient for our church to thrive. If we have the impression that all we need to do for the church is make regular contributions, then we have missed the point. The church does need your money, but we need you. Perhaps we need you more than we need your money. And I realize that that is a bold statement, but I really do believe that to be true. When money is the only focus of stewardship, our perception of stewardship and what we are funding becomes skewed. We never make it past the funding, the financial obligations to accomplishing the mission, the vision, the covenants. And as we learned in A Time for All Ages today, certain fertilizers have a high short-term impact, but ultimately can leave the soil bereft of the nutrients that it needs for the crops to flourish in the future. For our church to thrive, we need time, we need talent, and we need treasure from all of us. We'll be able to give those in varying amounts, but all of us can give something in each of those areas. And through the special alchemy of giving what we can for the support of our church's mission, vision of ministry, and covenants, we wind up with more than we ever could have expected on our own. Sum is more than its parts. Something more, not something different. You can't expect onions to turn into tomatoes, right? The alchemy of church stewardship is not that, but it is a single tomato plant producing the tomatoes one might expect from 10 plants, leading to a good harvest to benefit everyone. And what happens in churches is always then somebody shows up with some bread, and then somebody always shows up with some basil, and someone always shows up with some mozzarella, just things you did not expect, right? By being stewards of our little garden patch here, we get so much more than we give. We go from survive to thrive. Church stewardship that includes time and talent along with the treasure is the story of something from nothing. It's the story of keeping everybody going another day through the power of love and determination. It doesn't take a lot, just all your extra time and river of blood, sweat, and tears. Maybe not quite that much, but it is to be received with dignity and put to use when our understanding of how we support one another in this beloved community moves beyond the idea of being solely financial and to the parts of us that we came here for in the first place, our hearts, our souls, right? And let's be good stewards of this church. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. Go now into this world as a beacon of hope and joy. Go in love, go in peace. Now that our worship has ended, our service begins. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.